All right. Do other countries recognize Jerusalem, or will others now recognize it as the capital, as it is pretty much decked out with all of the important political offices there? Joining us right now, Alexandra Smith. Alex Smith is the executive director of America Rising PAC, the PAC, founded in 2013 for the sole purpose of exposing the truth about Democrats through video tracking research and strategic communications. You might have seen her on Fox News here or there commentating. She was named co-recipient of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee's Ally of the Year. Alex Smith, thanks for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
You go by Alex, right?
Alex is fine.
All right. Well, what do you go by? What do you prefer?
My mother would prefer Alexander.
Well, then I'm not going to mess with your mom, that's for sure. Alexander. Okay. So are there, we'll start with that where I left off. Are there other countries that recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and do you think more will follow the U.S.?
So, what I had heard last night was that more had intended to follow. I believe the Czech Republic was another country that had made the move as well. But this really isn't surprising to me. And I think that this is an area where President Trump ought to be commended for his leadership. America is a leader in the world. And I think for too long we've been operating in this limbo when it comes to the capital of Israel and having our embassy in Tel Aviv, but recognizing through congressional legislation, through, speeches at the National Party committees and National Party platforms that Jerusalem is the rightful capital of Israel. That's what Israel recognizes as not only its actual capital, but its spiritual capital going back 3,000 years. And so, this is I would not be surprised to see more countries follow America's lead in this.
Why? So why did other presidents say that they agree that that is the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, and Trump finally acted? Why didn't other presidents act on this? What was the big fear of taking this action, and why do some people, critics, say this is a dangerous move?
Well, the issue of the status of the city of Jerusalem is definitely a thorny one, and it's a complex issue. You have a lot of different claims to that land and to that heritage. It's an important site not only for the religion of Judaism, but also Christianity and Islam. So, there are complex issues involved. However, since Israel was founded more than 70 years ago, this is something that they have recognized as their capital. The United States has recognized Israel as its Jerusalem as its capital, and in fact, in 1995, passed legislation demanding that the U.S. move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But every 6 months, the U.S. president has typically signed a national security waiver, sort of pushing it off, saying for security reasons we're gonna push it off. I think where President Trump is at is this is something that he looked at on the campaign trail. Is something that he promised to do. He's making good on that promise, but at the same time, I think he is recognizing the complex issue. So, for example, he's really not. He's promoting the status quo on the Temple Mount, where there are access issues for Israeli citizens, it's not perfectly open, if you will.
Well, are Christians, Jews, and Muslims able to float freely around the city of Jerusalem to go to the religious mosques, temples, or sites that they wish to visit?
I've been to Israel twice, and for the most part, yes. On the Temple Mount, so if you think about probably illustrations or photographs you've seen of Jerusalem, you have the famous mosque, but then you have the Dome of the Rock. You see the golden sort of rooftop, if you will, golden dome. That area is a little bit more restricted in favor of Muslims.
Yep. This is something that Democrats support too. I mean, would you call this a bipartisan move? Aren't there a lot of Democrats who support identifying Jerusalem as the capital and moving our embassy there?
So, in words, yes.
No.
This is something that's been included in the Republican Party's platform for many years, and also it was included in the Democratic Party's platform. However, there has been an increasing amount of protest from the left wing of the Democratic Party, I think, to not be as favorable towards Israel. So at the 2012 convention, if you'll remember, actually Israel was booed and Jerusalem was stripped out of the Democratic Party platform. And I think what's interesting now is that you see a senator like Cory Booker from New Jersey who's interested in running for president himself in 2020. He at the time said that it was terrible, that Israel was booed, and this is a sacrosanct issue for Israel, where the capital is. And now he's suddenly changing his tune in 2017 as he hopes to appeal to the more progressive parts of the Democratic Party and saying that this was the wrong move. So in words, yes, I tend to agree that that's where they were. In actions, I think that the statements of yesterday were pretty decidedly against the president, which is disappointing in my opinion.
Well, I'll say, and the Dems always seem to get the Jewish vote, too, even as they drift in that direction. Now, I was going to ask, crazy Chris Matthews on MSNBC said this is something that evangelicals have crazy ideas about the embassy and about faith, and he's blaming them and saying that they'll have blood on their fingers, that there will be deaths as a result of this. And others have come out, too, with concerns about violence. And do you think that there will be violence? I know there were protests yesterday by Palestinians. And do you think they're going to lay the blame at Trump's feet if something happens?
I mean, like I said, this is a complex issue, and it's a foreign policy issue in which I don't claim to be a nuanced expert. What I will say, though, is that when it comes to Palestinians, these are folks, and they have a lot of allies in the Arab world who basically start from the premise at the negotiating table, to the extent that they show up at all, that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. So, it's really difficult, in terms of like talking about peace talks and sort of like, refraining from making a decision on this issue until peace talks continue. We were sort of in a holding pattern, with the Palestinians. The government is horribly mismanaged and corrupt in creating a humanitarian crisis over there, to be honest. And so, unfortunately, I do expect that there will be violence, but I think that it's not violence that couldn't have otherwise been expected from these fanatics, because this is the core of their beliefs. And, I don't think any one, move could either prevent or necessarily provoke them to act based on, what I've observed being in the region.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's kind of like you said, in 95, there was a congressional, I guess, a bill. There was an act, the Embassy Act, that says we recognize Jerusalem as the capital. Everybody agrees to that. Even last night, I went on Google Maps to take a look at Israel, and it said capital Jerusalem. It said Tel Aviv was known for its beaches and architecture. It didn't call that the capital. And all Trump did was say, well, yeah, it is the capital. So if it's the capital, that's where the embassy should be, correct?
Correct. I mean, look, Tel Aviv is a beautiful city. The beaches are wonderful in Tel Aviv. However, that's not where the U.S. Embassy belongs. The U.S. Embassy belongs in the place where the country, through their own national sovereignty, their own desires of the country, tells us as the world's community that their capital is. This would be like in exchange, Israel saying we're going to put the U.S. Embassy in my hometown of Philadelphia.
In Baltimore, yeah, something weird like that, yeah.
Instead of Washington, D.C.,
yeah.
Because we acknowledge that that's your capital, but for other reasons we're going to put it in Philadelphia. It's a sign of disrespect, in my opinion, and I think that this is something that the U.S. and Israel have been working towards. This is, I think, an important symbolic move to show our greatest ally in the region, someone who shares our ideas about a free and open society and innovation and equality, that we are there for them, and we understand not only their political their political sovereignty, but also their spiritual desires as well.
All right, Alexandra Smith from the America Rising PAC. Do you know when your next television appearance is?
Not yet, but they tend to crop up at the last minute.
Yeah. What have you done? Fox. What else have you done? Have you done CNN or any other networks?
I have. I've been on CNN. I've been on MSNBC. I've been on The Blaze. It's been a busy couple of years. So you name it, I probably was there.
Hey, when you
Hopefully, I was saying something smart for your viewership.
But when you do that, are they how tough are they on time? I mean, how do they prep you? You're a veteran of this now, but when you sit there and you know they're going to ask you a question, you have to be pretty bright, know what you're talking about to get on there like you. But how aware of the time are you? Do they really limit that?
Yeah, I mean, you really it depends on the type of segment that they want to do. Some are longer than others, but I would say generally, if you have an answer that goes on too long, if you watch back the tape, it doesn't sound, it's not conducive for a television audience. You should really try to keep your answers to 30 or 45 seconds to sort of fit with the overall groove of the program.
The rhythm. All right. I appreciate your time today, Alexandra. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
Yep. Alexandra Smith there from America Rising at 7:40.